Hello, welcome you all for this virtual meeting. We are glad to have you all here. I'm Lata, Technical Director Training ISC2 Hyderabad Chapter. We also have here with us our panelists who would be sharing their insights into our today's topic, how human factors leave you vulnerable. So before we kick on to this session, let us introduce our panelists. They're all well experienced practicing cybersecurity professionals. Here we have Sandhya Chevian, Member Chair, Jaspreet Sharan, Director Technical Training, and we have Sandeep Andekar, his Secretary, and we are all representing ISC2 Hyderabad Chapter. So that's our panel. Now, diving into our today's topic, how human factors leave us vulnerable with respect to cybersecurity. Let us have a quick briefing on the human element, the people in cybersecurity ecosystem. We all know that we have, apart from people, we have processes, technologies, and information assets, infrastructure assets, and data, all being the part of the cybersecurity. Having said that, how important the people are. We have every standard, every regulation, or any framework for that matter, talking about cybersecurity places the human factor, the people as pivotal to cybersecurity spectrum. The paradox here, when we talk about people, the people are the driving force behind the organization itself, the business, the technologies, the cyber defenses. But then the same people are treated as the weakest link in the cybersecurity spectrum. Why? Food for thought, right? So, like any other asset, even the people, they create the vulnerabilities. But why we are saying that this is the weakest link? If you go by the statistics, which give the facts, there are two things. One talks about of all the risks, inside risks are the major ones. When we talk about insider risk, we are referring to the people alone, right? How people behave, how people create risk. And the second part, when we talk about which are the attacks, major attacks that are mostly successful, it's again the social engineering attacks. If we say social engineering attacks, that means again the people are the prey. They are the ones who fall for this social engineering attacks and then make the compromise possible. So both the facts point to one thing, that the people are the weakest link. Now why? Let us see why this happens. What leads to this kind of vulnerabilities created by people being the most crucial and being the majority? Sandhya, we would like to know from you how this human factor create the vulnerabilities in an organization with respect to the cybersecurity. Can you throw some light on that?
Sure. Thank you, Lata. These days, organizations is not just about technology. And as you know, any other day or any other organization, human component is at its core, that which interacts with the technology. It encompasses the cybersecurity component, encompasses all the three components of people, process, technology. And the unpredictable nature of human tendencies make it the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. Now, according to a research, employee negligence or malicious acts account for 2/3 of cyber breaches. And as a matter of fact, a compromise is more likely to come from an employee who left his laptop unattended than from a malicious attack. Most of us are under impression that a bad actor has exploited a weak entry point. But the easiest way is to find the weak link which is caused by human interactions, like social engineering, for example. Now let's take a look at another analogy. Assume a robber is conducting a recon on the street. He tries the door of the every car that's parked on the street. If he finds the car door locked, he moves on to the another one until he finds the unlocked car. And if there is a laptop or a check left in the car visible to the would-be robbers, the motivation to break into the car is even more. How to tackle this? The solution is simple: mindset change of the car owners. And it's the same with employees of an organization and the associated threat actors. Now let's look at another face of this coin. It's the complacency attitude from the top management, which is likely to be adopted by the employees. Now, poor cybersecurity practices and naivety on the part of technology users makes an organization even more susceptible to cyber attack. Irrespective of whether the error is intentional or not, the cost of human error adds up over the years, resulting in a data breach or a disclosure and misuse of private information. Now, systems or technology cannot commit hacks or crimes. It is the people who use them, or rather misuse the technology, who is responsible for this crime or hack. Now, having said that, we cannot completely do away with the human component, which makes it more relevant than ever in the current state of industry. So, we need to build the cybersecurity program with human factors at the center of its universe.
Thank you, Sandhya. Uh, Taking from what Sandhya told us right now, just wait. Can you just throw a light on some major examples which show that human factor is responsible in many of these exploits?
Sure, Lata. I'll start by sharing data from one of the report that was recently published by IBM. And it mentioned like 95% of the attack are due to human errors. And we have seen it a couple of times. And when we do analysis for any of the major cyber attack that has happened, we see like sometimes it was such silly errors on the human side. For example, every one of us would have heard about solar wind. Someone just did not comply with the organization policy, like you need to have strong passwords, and they left admin as default credentials. Attacker was able to exploit the same, and then it resulted in a compromise of major organization which were consuming or like which were utilizing solar wind as a monitoring tool. So small error of someone leaving a admin as default credential resulted in a major security breach. Similarly, you might have heard about Uber attack, which happened last month. So it is a classic example of social engineering where attacker was able to persuade users and get their password. And at times you feel like even if someone gets password, so like you have multi-factor authentication. So attacker went ahead and something we call it MFA fatigue, like you keep sending on those multi-factor approval requests, and at some point in time, the user will approve it. And that's exactly happening on the Uber attack last month. People still share or they still store passwords unencrypted, like they will leave it on notepad, they share it with other people, and sometimes they do write it on a piece of paper as well. Another thing that we have seen over a couple of years, people do share a lot of information on social sites, and it becomes easier for attacker to correlate all of the information. I'll give you an example. For example, if I'm quoting on LinkedIn that, hey, I'm database administrator for so-and-so organization, and then in one of the social, or let's say technical form, I'm asking that, hey, we have this problem with the Oracle 11G. Then users get this information, okay, so-and-so organization is using Oracle 10G, he's the administrator, so I'm the person who will get targeted. So maybe through social engineering or like maybe sending some phishing email, that's another area which people still fall victim to. Like, hey, you got an invoice, just click on this attachment, or you got the lottery ticket, and here are the steps, click on this link. People still fall victim for those phishing attacks, even today, after so much of security awareness being driven at organization level. And most of us would have done it at some point of time. Maybe we do it out of courtesy, like allowing tailgating. We allow people, maybe, as I said, like it's out of courtesy at time, like we open the gate, but we forget at that time that this security restriction was put in place just to keep unwanted or unintended people being given access to the secured areas. Another thing that is quite common, like when people leave organization, they copy a lot of confidential information. And now we have talked a lot about end users doing something maybe by error, by like complacence, or not being aware. At times, security teams themselves do not develop the cybersecurity program or the policies and guidelines, keeping all aspects of human factor. For example, we might have a very strong entry-exit process for access to soap room or maybe to the CISO room. But have you considered that cleaning staff and janitor would get into those rooms, maybe when no one is around, or let's say when lesser people are there? So to summarize, we see a lot of example in our day-to-day life where human factors, if not considered, or like if not given proper guidance, or if not having proper controls, makes the organization vulnerable.
So that shows what kind of attack surface the people provide for the attackers. It's much wider surface, right, than anything else. So given this, Sandeep, can you tell us, we know that they are the weakest link and they provide a lot of vulnerabilities. What do you think are the challenges in identifying this human risk to the organization security posture? Can you brief us on that?
Okay, challenges, we can say, first of all, I should say Sandhya and Jasbir, they have well told about with examples of how human behavior that is vulnerable and that leads to the cyber security threats. When Sandhya has said that an employer, any user, they left their system or their desktop unlocked. Similarly, an employer and user, we can say, they have shared their password to his peer, to one of his colleague, to make his work done. So these are the, we can say, these human behaviors with is we can this is a challenge where we should measure it. So how can we measure these kind of activities which is performed by the employees users? It's completely depend upon organization maturity level. Suppose we think, support the present organization security posture and present organization policy, what they have defined. And second, we can also, you can also think that what kind of culture they have got in their organization, security culture they embed in the employees. That is very much important. Suppose to measure these kind of things, how we can measure, how these are proportional to cyber attacks. As said, Sanjay said, a person on left is desktop unlocked, means that somebody, any his colleague who is, I think, who is against to him, he may use his desktop, which is used for malpractice, which is used for any some unethical activity may perform. So by that, what will happen? A security incident may happen in that organization that will come to know. So in a particular period, how the organization has measured these kind of security incidents. So that is very much important to take the we can say the figures, how they measure it, how they are going to show to the employees how many security incidents happened last month and how many security incidents happened this month, whether it is increasing or whether it is decreasing. This kind of measurement, if you do in an organization, we can easily catch the security posture and behavior and culture of organization, how they embedded with their employees. That is very much, it is nothing but they have their own benchmark, they have their own scorecards in measuring these kind of unethical practices they are used by their employees or users. Then we can easily face these kind of challenges which user behaviors, and we can also show them this kind of behavior has made these kind of threats to their employees and users.
Thank you, Sandeep. That goes without saying that. Probably what I understand from this, whatever vulnerabilities or challenges that result from human behavior are they get manifested in some form of instance, and when you focus on them and you manage them, you are ultimately managing the human risk. And probably, yeah, as you rightly said, it is very challenging to identify because the human psychology or human behavior, the response keeps changing. There's a lot of uncertainty associated with that. Yes. Thank you. Again, this question also to you. Is there any difference between the insider attacks and vulnerabilities that arise from human errors? How do you find them as same or different?
See, Lata, as your question, there will be a lot of difference that can easily we can have demarcation, which is insider attack, and it is a normal vulnerable that has came into organization that given a threat to the organization. Insider attack always it is a modified, it is intentions. His intention says that he should make something that should be make his organization to make organization fall, and to make his organization to face cyber security threat. So his intentions are very harmful. He want to make his organization in the picture in the market that his brand image he want to disturb for organization. So actually when we say it's insider threat is always a with the modified intention of a employee or user. There are so many such cases we can see, we can observe in our organization. Suppose what we'll say, any patch, we can say any configuration that make on the servers. If suppose if a modified intention if the user have is simply designed his own server, simply we can say he doesn't apply the patch that is, and similarly a user can also introduce a logic bomb on his system or server, so that at particular point of period this his intention was to make his organization for a cyber security threat. There will be a clear demarcation will be there for insider threat. Suppose vulnerabilities as usual in a normal case, that also we can easily identify, but these are not so harmful to the organization. This is as usual in the case of business that comes as we are going to evolve these kind of threats. We are able to see that is nothing but zero-day attacks. We will see sometimes when when organization wants to enable some features in applications, they will be having some patches, so that the patches will certainly help us to reduce their vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities we can know how you find out these vulnerabilities, like we will be using NASA's tool to find any vulnerabilities in operating systems, and our organization will be using bug suits like application security that were found in applications. These are things, those reports will give us and help us, enable us to rectify or resolve these kind of vulnerabilities. In case of a modified intention, insider threat, it is very cannot easily identify them. I think until unless if anything threat happens, then only we can able to find this kind of insider threat was happened, and any unusual behavior that was taken place in our organization. Then only we can and digital forensics help us what kind of intention and his modified intention was there in a particular server and particular in application. We can able to find it. So there is a clear, we can say that a lot of difference between insider threat and a normal vulnerability that we face in our organization.
So according to you, insider threats are mostly intentional, malintentional activities of the insiders, and vulnerabilities arising out of human errors are mostly due to ignorance or indifference, kind of. That's what you're
Ah,
trying to differentiate, right? Yeah, thank you. And then talking about this risk, now how do we tackle with this risk? How do we actually manage the risk arising out of human errors in the organization? Just we can share your opinions with us.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when I shared data from the IBM report, like 95% of the attacks are due to human errors. So opportunity lies there. That means we know what we have to fix. We have to design our cyber programs or cybersecurity programs, keeping humans at the center. We need to understand that what is the user need to do uh, so that we don't act as a blocker for them, like we enable them. Otherwise, what typically people do is like if you put so much of restriction, then they try to bypass. And when they try to bypass, that means they are even creating a bigger risk to the organization. I'll give an example. Let's say a company decides to monitor all the browsing activities and then they'll say like every time you're working from home or like from anywhere from, let's say even Starbucks or any outside your company premises, you need to be connected on VPN so that we can bring all of the traffic back to our data centers, and then we want to monitor what you are browsing. Now, if they put a restriction that you cannot access Google Drive, company might be thinking that they need to do it because people cannot copy confidential information from systems to, let's say, Google Drive. But at the same time, if there is a requirement, let's say people might want to open their personal document, then what they will typically do is they will disconnect the VPN and then browse Google Drive. So that means they try to bypass the control that was actually put in place. Now, there are two things. We need to understand what people need to do. So if we act as a blocker, like in this case, we just just made them connect VPN by default, and then whenever they have to do what they need to do, let's say accessing the Google Drive, they will disconnect VPN. So when the VPN is disconnected in this case, we have no browsing capability available on that system. That means the initial thought process of, let's say, blocking the Google Drive has resulted in even creating more vulnerability in the system, because now if he's browsing a site which he should not be accessing, or like maybe it's unintentional also, it will create bigger risk. So to summarize this point, like we need to, whenever we create cyber security programs or policies, we need to keep users at the center. Second is, whenever we design security controls, we need to embed the principle of least privileges. For example, users should only be given permission which they need to do their required jobs. For example, if I just need reader access to a database, I just should be a reader. Like I don't need the admin access to that system. Similarly, like other principles like separation of duties. If you have a critical system or if you have a critical workflow that needs maybe multiple people to work it to get more security on that, that should be embedded in the process. So even if one person make mistake, there's another factor or the other person who needs to, let's say, sign off on something before something gets approved or something gets executed. So embedding those security principles into our cybersecurity programs and the security controls that we design. Now, after having formulated those policies and security controls, we need to bring that to the users, because as I talked in the first point, we need to be human centric. So we need to take those policies and controls and the security requirements to the end user. They should be fully aware why we are doing something. So if you have a control that, hey, you need to encrypt traffic, that means they should know that what is the risk of not encrypting traffic. Let's say if they are dealing with something critical or something very highly confidential, if they don't encrypt it, what is going to be the repercussions of that? Because they, and also they need to understand security is shared responsibility. Being part of security team, I can design 100 of controls, but until unless I take it to the end user, or let's say to the developer team who is developing an application, and if they don't know what are the controls they need to abide or what are the controls they need to comply with, I think my security program is half broken. I'll quote one example. There is a fitness site basically, and they charge very hefty amount, I would say, for monthly subscription. And I'm assuming that when they were developing that application website, they might have taken all of the security controls in place, like maybe they have done the SaaS test, and they have ensured like there are no open source libraries, and they have, let's say, hosted it in one of the cloud subscriptions, and which is fully secure. But in this scenario, the developer has overlooked and did not enable authentication for each of the directories. So now if you go to the website and slash workout and slash something, so you are able to access their intellectual property. Like they are charging for the same property, but on the other side, developer never bothered to ensure that every directory access should be authenticated. So essentially, like it's very well available. Let's say it's one of the OAuth's top 10 security misconfiguration, like having directory traversal being overlooked is something I feel that means the security awareness program may have been there, but it did not reach the intended users. Fourth, I would say we need to use technology wherever we can. We still should assume that people at time might be complacent, they might ignore something, or it might just be a human error. So in those scenarios, let's say risk of someone losing a username and password. So that means we need to bring in technological controls wherever possible. Now here, let's say enabling multi-factor authentication, making sure like at least someone has to pass through dual factor authentication before they get access to the resources that the person has access to. Similarly, like having there are a lot of tools available now which can do behavior analysis and report on anything that seems suspicious. So having that automated detection of something malicious on the user side and getting reported and acted upon is another area that we should think of. And finally, Sandeep also mentioned a lot about the insider threat program. We should have a strong insider threat program because having all those policies in place and everything covered from security awareness perspective, having those tools and technologies, those are more for external actors to keep away. But what about the insider threat? Maybe we have disgruntled employees, someone is not happy with their manager, or they're leaving the organization at that particular point in time. So what should we do at that time to minimize the risk of someone who has access to our data and systems? So having a strong insider threat program as well will help in the long run.
So thank you, Jasbir. So that means the combination of actions, so like including the policies, the awareness programs, and creating the shared responsibility and making them sensible to the risk, and putting up the technology controls together would go a long way in taking care of this risk. Thank you again. And we have one more question to Sandhya. In the context of cybersecurity, what do you think the role IT, HR, and business management can play with regard to the human factors?
Okay. Now, before I move into the role of HR and other business enabled functions, I would like to touch upon another topic. Here, for an organization, the most effective defense is promoted through education and training. These both fall under the responsibility of organizational leadership. As a human factor, supporting role of leadership community is vital to an organization's security culture. And for the formulated policies and training to be enforced, the directive should come from the top leadership team. Now, these policies and procedures need to be formulated with the inputs from HR team, IT team, and other application teams, which has a stake in the cybersecurity posture of the organization. And once the policies have been formulated, next comes a step of developing training material. For a security professional, security is simple and common knowledge, but it is most likely a difficult and confusing for non-security workforce. if we entrust training material development only to a security professional, this might result in less effective training materials because they think it's common sense. Like if I say, okay, do so, no password management. So it's common sense for everybody. They might think in those lines, but it does not make sense. So they have to work with some other team, some other education and training team to help them develop the training material. Now, if that does not happen, it results in less effective training materials, and it creates a negative security culture. Uh, okay, now we have developed training material. What next? Now, this training material and education, this needs to be dispersed among the organizational workforce. So it has to be made available to the employees, external employees, or whoever is accessing the resources. And here communication is the key to the security strategy and is necessary for every situation in which human beings work together. Now, this communication includes collaboration, messaging designed to inform parties interested, and all the application security holders as well. Now, the relationship of an employee with an organization starts with HR and ends with HR. It begins with onboarding into new resource, new hire orientation, uh, maintaining policies and procedures and best practices, to name a few. HR should also take the role of evaluating the efficacy of the training and education programs. They have to communicate any changes to the policy, suggest changes to the policies and education material. Because HR departments also have a lot of influence on the behaviors of the employees, and they can basically influence the cyber hygiene behaviors through their work. HR can also play the role as an enabler, collaborate. They can actually do a role of a collaborator as well among other business functions or teams in the organization. Now, just like if you want, if you're trying to get fit or stay healthy, you have it's not enough that you exercise one day a week, or your workout regime is not consistent. You do not see your results then. It is imperative that you work out consistently to see the results. Even though there is no progress, on day one, at least on day 100, you will see some progress. Similarly, creating a cybersecurity culture is not cannot be done in a single day. It has to be a continuous process that has to be evaluated every day, or at least periodically every month as well. And to conclude, I would say security awareness training or the cybersecurity hygiene of an organization, it's not the responsibility of a single team or a single person in an organization. It's a collective responsibility of everyone in an organization to create a culture of cybersecurity or digital safety.
Thank you, Sandhya. So, what I understand, since HR is the touch point of the people in the organization, and since IT and the security teams are concerned with the propagating the message on cybersecurity, and of course, the business leadership, they are the people who have to actually approve this and provide the resources. They all have to work together to handle this human risk in the organization, right? Yeah, thank
Exactly.
you.
It's not just the role of HR or one single team.
Yeah, and now having seen the vulnerabilities and how they exist in the organization, who are all to have to handle that and how to handle, we also need to know how to measure them. Sandeep, are there any metrics for evaluating the measures taken to deal with human behavioral risk in cybersecurity?
Yeah, as we all know that human behavior, what through human behavior, what are the mistakes, what are the errors that they do in the technology side. So we can say that organization can measure their human behavior mistakes also. Simply, we can take with a simple example. First of all, let us do a research in organization. Suppose there are 100 people, 100 employees in their organization. First of all, they should research on cyber security awareness of the employees and cyber and security culture of organization. Let us they do research on it, and have also have got my own analysis. I can tell you simple way that we can make a simple analysis that there will be a positive behavior analysis and negative behavior analysis of human behavior. In case of, we can say that positive human behavior analysis, they want to measure for an organization how they suppose they should create a matrix as that how many of employees have attended their cybersecurity awareness program. Suppose 100 employees, how many of them attended the cybersecurity awareness program? What is the percentage? That is a positive analysis. We can do that. And similarly, if any cybersecurity questionnaire has given to them, how many of their employees has got through that questionnaire and given a good inputs. So by that, how many percentage of employees has attended the cybersecurity questionnaire in a positive way, and they come out of that examination. This is, we can say that is a positive analysis of human behavior. We can also measure negative analysis of human behavior. That is might be it's like that. Say, how many of employees they made their user passwords locked in a particular period out of 100 employees. This is negative analysis. So there may be some human behavior is something different here. Why they are going to lock their passwords? That's one thing. Similarly, we can say that how many of employees they fall prey of this phishing attacks.
Right.
100 employees. This is a negative analysis. So we can say that out of 100, 5 members got fall prey of this phishing. We can measure this. Similarly, one more thing we can say, one of the biggest threats for organizations is that whaling attack. We can say that they target executives of their employees. So how many of their executives fall prey of this phishing in whaling attacks? So this is negative analysis, metric calculation of this negative analysis metrics and positive analysis metrics surely improve their organization security culture. And there are also low these core we can they implement persistently in a on monthly wise. If they want to see any improvements, these core help the organization, and these cores also they can explain to their boards. So this is a cybersecurity position at particular point of time after the implementation of awareness programs and cultural workshops among the employees, and these has improved. Our positive analysis has improved, and negative analysis also decreased. So this is the percentage where our employees got embedded their security culture in our organization, that make their board also more confident that my organization of, with human behavior related things were safe. And this also required a lot of exercise in the organization. It's not so simple to calculate these behaviors. They should have do a lot of research, and they should also take the inputs of this negative analysis and positive analysis, and they can they should prepare their dashboards and scorecards so that they can publish to their employees. They can publish to their board, and you can say that continuous effort and persistence effort, they can see that the results can speak. Their organization has got cyber hygiene. They are well with cyber security posture, and their work and employees have cultivated their behaviors in a such a way that what to respond, what not to respond, how to behave, what kind of mails, and how to educate themselves in upcoming technologies. Those kind of things will simply we can say probably make their organization we can say, we cannot say that there is no there will be no errors at all. There will be human errors. A human is nothing but we can say they can make mistakes, but we should, our aim is to decrease the errors, decrease my organization not to fall prey of any cybersecurity threat. This is when we achieve organization will always be safe. And this is to be we can say that human behavior is we can say it's a very simple, we can say that it's a sensitive one. we can assist one. And also when we make fun, when we make simply we teach with fun to our employees, they can also learn the things very well, and they can embed the security culture, and they can produce good results to their organization. See,
Yeah,
so
so
thank you for sharing my listening and giving my inputs here. This is a small study which I prepared myself to produce here. It's a good thing you can have this case study also in the organization.
nice to have that. So you mean to say we need to have establish those systems and some processes which would help us to ascertain the cybersecurity behavior of the people inside the organization vis-a-vis the cybersecurity culture or the efforts of the organization. So that's how we identify where actually our efforts stand in actually grooming up our people in the organization towards a better culture of cybersecurity. Yeah, thank you for the insights. So before we conclude, I request our panelists, do you want to add anything more to this? If not, Sandhya, anything you want to add?
No, I just wanted to reiterate that cybersecurity is not a one-day job or a one-man job. It has to be continuous, and it's everybody's responsibility.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
as Sandhya said, it's a process improvement that happens day by day. It's not a constant particular day my organization cyber security safe. It's a continuous improvement that should embed in organization to make their employees to cultivate cyber culture.
Thank you, Sandeep, Sandhya, and Jaspir. Thanks for sharing your views and with all your experience that you have brought out so many valuable points to our discussion. So, human beings as important element in cybersecurity ecosystem, the way the other assets are taken care, similarly human element also to be handled with. But the thing is, when you talk about the information systems or infrastructure assets, they have that staticness. When you come to the people part of it, they are dynamic and they're changing, they're unpredictable, and there is no logic or anything. People behave differently. So there comes it actually poses a great challenge for us. But then ultimately we all have systems, as Sandeep was telling, there's good research on this aspect of it. If we pay more attention in all our whatever effort we put in the organization to create a better cyber security posture, so we should be taking people as the most important element which we need to handle in relation to all other aspects, be it your information assets, your data, or infrastructure, technology, whatever you name in your cyber security ecosystem, people will be there playing a pivotal role and remains the weakest link. It is up to us to see and reduce the weakness and then strengthen our cyber security. That is for now. Thank you once again for being with us. Now we will be concluding this session here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.